The following is a BATV production, made with the equipment that is available to residents of our cable viewing area. To learn more about television production and the equipment that is available to you, please visit www.mybatv.com.
Hello, and thank you for joining us at BATV's Falto Studios inside Batavia High School. My name is Kathy Gressy, editor of the Kane County Chronicle, and I will be your host and moderator for today's episode of Viewpoint. Viewpoint is a roundtable talk show that will highlight a specific topic that is being discussed in our community. In today's show, we will be discussing what's happening at Fermilab. Here to participate in the discussion are Brendan Keyberg, scientist of the G-2 experiment, Marge Bardeen with the Office of Education, Andre Sals from the Office of Communication, Todd Cumbo, a Community Advisory Board member, and Eric Ramberg, a scientist and leader of the Saturday Morning Physics program. Thank you for joining us today. When we return, we will hear the viewpoint of each of our guests. Stay tuned.
At Shelter Insurance, we're people who know that the first love of your life
I need you to take the screws off.
might have been made of steel.
Thank you.
Shelter Insurance. For your auto, home, and life, we're your shield. We're your shelter.
Ask Agent Mike Hanrahan about Shelter's auto insurance discounts.
This is not your regular bowling alley.
Not at all. We've got nighttime cosmic bowl,
Cool effects,
automatic bumpers for the little ones,
and our signature sandwiches in the grill,
plus the full-service bar.
and arcade mezzanine.
Funway provides a bowling experience like none other. Whether it's you alone, a group or family outing, leagues, or just some exercise and fun.
Funway is your time in the fun.
Funway, come out and play.
Downtown Batavia, always moving by nature. Recreation. Nature. The arts. Specialty shops. Restaurants and services. Downtown is everyone's neighborhood. Come, celebrate. Meet friends. Unwind.
See you downtown. Let's get started with our first question. Andre, for those who might not be aware of Fermilab, can you talk a little bit about what's offered at the facility and its history?
Sure. Fermilab is, we like to call it America's Particle Physics Laboratory. It is entirely funded by the Department of Energy and owned by the U.S. government. It is operated by a group called the Fermi Research Alliance, which is basically the University of Chicago and a consortium of other universities. And what we do there is particle physics. We are the only national laboratory that is dedicated entirely to particle physics. There are folks here who can definitely go into our scientific program better than I can, but what I usually like to say for people for what we do is that we build really big things to look for really small things, the fundamental particles of the universe.
Sure.
And the smaller the thing we want to look for, generally the bigger the thing we have to build to find it.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it, actually, even from the probably small percentage of things that I know about Fermilab, that would definitely make sense. Brendan, can you talk a little bit about what was really in the spotlight last summer, the Muon G-2 experiment, where a huge electromagnet had to be brought from New York to Batavia?
Yeah, that's right. So there are these big questions out there looking for these tiny particles, and we have all these hints from particle physics and the cosmos that there are more particles out there that we haven't seen yet. So a trick is to design an experiment to look for them. In particular with this one, we use a particle called a muon to probe to see if there are other particles out there. A muon is basically just like an electron, except it is very short-lived. It dies in 2 millionths of a second. And so what we do is we put it into a big magnet. The muon has one other property, which is called spin, which means when it goes around the magnet, it kind of spins like a top. And when you crank up this really big magnet, if there are other particles out there in the universe, they can affect the way that it'll spin around inside of the magnet. So there was a big magnet in New York that had been used in a similar experiment before. and it was available, and basically all we needed to do was bring it to Fermilab.
That's it, right?
And I say all we needed to do because that involved basically about 40 miles of road transportation and about 3,200 miles on a boat. And it's a really sensitive device. It's a superconducting electromagnet that has a wire that goes around. And if it flexes or twists like a pretzel, we could break it. So we had to keep it very, very flat and level. So the journey took it from New York onto a barge down around the coast. It stopped in Norfolk for a little bit because there was really bad weather, and then down around Miami, across the Gulf of Mexico, and then up the river system, and eventually got off in Lamont, Illinois. And then we put it back on a trailer and brought it to Fermilab, where we had a big event, and thousands of people from the community had an opportunity to come and talk to us and find out what it was all about. And we could, explain to them how exciting it was that they were interested in what we were doing.
Yeah. Were you at the homecoming for the magnet?
Yeah, I really had a chance to get involved firsthand. We had a couple different events. One was at a Costco, and one was at a forest preserve, and then at the laboratory. And we had many people that came out, and their interests were very diverse. Some people wanted to know about the trailer that was really specialized that the magnet sat on. Other people wanted to know why we do that sort of physics, and other people were just interested in something that passed on the road and they hadn't heard about before. Yeah. So it was very exciting.
I would say at the newspaper, it was, while we were writing about it, one of the most viewed stories that we had going for a while. I think there was incredible interest in it. Was anybody else at the table there for the magnet's arrival? Yeah. And for you other guys, what made you want to see this magnet come to Fermilab?
Well, speaking from my viewpoint, I think the exciting thing is that reusing that piece of equipment, to probe even further into the fundamental nature of the universe. It just tells you that science is an ongoing process, and you never quit at it. You just keep plugging away.
Yeah. And what about for you, Todd?
It was the challenge of getting it from there to here. That was really fascinating. On the board, they let us know that this was going to happen. They talked generally about how they were thinking about making it happen. So it was fascinating seeing that actually come to fruition. And being at the party, it was like being at the Oscars. They should have painted the road red because they brought it all the way up, and there was mass cheering, and then you got to go up and touch it. And that was really fascinating. My family was along with me, and it brought some friends along. And as Brandon said, there were just so many facets of it that were interesting to so many different people.
And you have some children. How old are your children?
I have one, a son who's a sophomore here in Batavia.
Okay, and for someone his age, did he really seem to have an interest in this magnet coming?
He did, once it got here.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was fascinated by it.
Yeah. And Marge, it sounded like you were at Fermilab too when the magnet came.
Well, I actually was also at the forest preserve, and what I thought was interesting were the people. Who is it that came out to see what was happening? And we were standing near some people who had already been to Costco. Then they heard it was coming to the forest preserve. So they were there. They had their chairs, their lawn chairs. They had drinks in the cup holders, and they were just having a great time. And so we were reminding them that they could come to Fermilab for the party that was coming after that. Oh, that's a great idea. We'll be there. So it was really interesting to people watch, if you will, and to see who the groupies were who were so interested that they would come to see the magnet.
Yeah, and even online you could track the progress of the magnet, which was pretty cool. Andre, was there anything like that up until that point at Fermilab, something that was kind of that big on a public scale?
Well, not for a while, certainly. What we did with this particular one, I think one of the best things we did is we put that GPS tracker on the ring itself, and so it could gather fans as it traveled the country. And so I was heavily involved in the publicity for that, and so I started getting calls from random people in like Virginia would call me and say, "When's it coming by?" Right? Yeah. And then when it got to Illinois, I mean, it had already gathered thousands of people from here, and just watching, we could only use the roads, the highways after midnight, so it was a late night trip, but there were still hundreds of people lining the roads everywhere we went. People who had like March of their lawn chairs out there waiting to see it, and that was fascinating for me just to see the level of interest. And I think one of my favorite parts of it though was that it wasn't just interest in look at this cool thing passing down the road. We got a lot of science out there in that. We got a lot of interest in our particular brand of science, which is
yeah. Brendan, was it correct that the magnet too, it couldn't tilt below a certain percentage or else it wouldn't have been working properly?
Right, so when it was on the barge, we had to be very careful that we didn't have really big waves, and so it would feel a lot of forces. But the most important thing was really that it didn't flex. Okay. So if it kept in a plane, it was okay to have a little bit of tilt, but you didn't want to have any sort of violent forces because that could shear the internal structure of the magnet.
Did you have some nervous nights while the magnet was traveling?
No, I think the people that were really in charge of it certainly were nervous, but they really executed the plan that had been reviewed many times within the laboratory and within external reviews. And we were really confident that we had the right tools in place to monitor, and the right people in place to provide the equipment for the transport, so that ultimately it was more of a celebration than a nerve-wracking event. And especially for us, it was a celebration because we had an opportunity to actually go out into the public. Most of the time science happens, and with this experiment science will happen in a laboratory behind a key, in a locked gate. But this was a chance to really go out there and show people what's happening in their backyard and start a conversation about that.
Okay. And Marge, maybe that's a good segue. You're with the Office of Education. And I would imagine a big part of that is educating the community about what is happening at Fermilab, or at least sharing some of that knowledge with the public and those who are interested.
I would say our role is in the sharing category, so to speak. Andre gets to do the announcing, but I'll do an announcement because on Sunday we have a public open house for families. Kids are invited to bring their parents from 1 to 5. We have Mr. Freeze is doing a cryo show. We have a lot of hands-on activities in the atrium. We have some scientists who are willing to answer questions that people have. So we have some tours as well. People get to go see the magnet, but they've already signed up for that. So we certainly want to invite people to come. So that's one example of kinds of events that we have for families. We have classes for kids on Saturdays during the school year, and in the summer during the week, where students can come. We want to engage kids in doing science. We want to engage teachers in doing science, so we have workshops for teachers in the summer as well. People are invited to come for tours, and kids for field trips. Tours, usually we have a group, but on every Wednesday, people are free in the morning. They can come and just, it's sort of a walk-up tour. And we do that starting at 10:30. Okay. The Letterman Science Center is open once a month for a similar activity.
What are kids on Fermilab field trips doing at Fermilab these days? Even I remember being in grade school and coming on a Fermilab field trip.
What did you do?
You know what? I don't really remember. I remember kind of the grandness of the place, maybe more than anything, and knowing that it was a really important science center. But some of the specifics I don't really remember too much.
Well, so we have two varieties of field trips. One is to the prairie, where we engage kids in doing some collection and counting of data about perhaps insects or plants, or going on a walking trip to look at what the prairie is like if you're really young. Then we also have experiences for kids with physical sciences, and the middle school kids get to go and see the areas where scientists are working. They get to meet someone like Eric, Brendan, and Eric and Brendan will answer important questions like, what kind of car do you drive? What did you have to do to become a physicist? And then high school kids also can have tours of that variety.
And you mentioned that open house that's taking place Sunday, which would be February 9th. How often do open houses take place?
So this is an annual event. Okay. So we usually have it in February. We have another event called Wonders of Science, which is for a science show that teachers put on for kids. We are having a high school career expo this spring, and then in the summer we have a family open house. So kids are invited to bring their parents to all of those events, but we don't particularly want kids to show up by themselves.
Yeah. What is it like for you or people in your department when you see a young person learn something about science and show a genuine interest in it?
Well, we always talk about the aha moments. Mm-hmm. And so it's really interesting, and as a former teacher, you see that too, where all of a sudden it clicks and you think, that's really great because that person was able to engage in doing something, and now they understand in a new way how scientists discover things. And in some cases, they get to think about, so how does he talk about his work? And those are important things that students don't always have a chance to do at school. So it helps us with scientific literacy. And after all, these guys are going to fade away one day. And so someone has to come along to take their place. And Eric can tell you about his high school program where high school students today may be particle physicists. And they are certainly going to be voters. And some of them may be in Congress. And it surely would be nice for them to know something about how scientists work and why it's important for our country and our economy.
Right.
So we work on all those things.
Eric, Marge had mentioned and referred to the Saturday morning physics program. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely, I'd be very happy to. It's a program that was started about 35 years ago by Leon Lederman, Nobel Prize-winning former director of the lab. And its goal was to engage with some of the best high school students in the local area. And to that end, we've kept it up. We have 3 sessions a year in the fall, winter, and spring. It's a 9-week course. And the idea is to give an opportunity to high school students to really see the state-of-the-art science. And lectures include things like relativity, quantum mechanics, particle physics, cosmology, accelerators, detectors, things of that nature. And so there's a 2-hour lecture, and at the end of that, they take a tour someplace, some facility around the lab. And so we graduate about 200 students a year. And it's some of the, cream of the crop.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Who is an ideal student for the Saturday morning physics program?
Well, somebody who wants to come in and just let it flow over them. Let the unknown of the universe kind of just take hold and try to understand how to push back the frontiers. And we get students asking fantastic questions. And the scientists who give these lectures always say that it's a pleasure.
Does it have to be someone who's in honors physics or AP physics, or could it be someone with just that curiosity?
Absolutely, everybody's welcome, and I urge you to go on site, or urge any of the students watching this to go on site on our website and sign up for one of the sessions.
What is that website?
Good question. I just type in Saturday morning physics and Fermilab.
It'll pop up.
It'll pop up, yeah. Actually, the interesting thing is that you do that nowadays, and you'll see Saturday morning physics sites all across the world, in fact, and they all originated from Fermilab.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And what's it like for you to work with some of these kids? That's got to be really fantastic.
Absolutely. They engage you at the break. They engage you before and after the lecture, during the tours. Asking fantastic questions.
Do you see, just great things for these kids when they're leaving the program?
Yeah, quite some time ago we did a survey, and something like 80% go on to technical careers of some kind.
So, not bad.
Yeah, that's very good. And I'm very heartened to see that girls and boys are about equally represented.
Oh, fantastic. I like hearing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we do have to take a quick break. Stay tuned for more Viewpoint.
Hi, I'm Tom Wangler, president of Confident Air. Regular maintenance can prolong the life of your furnace and keep your energy costs to a minimum. Plus, there's less of a chance of a breakdown on a cold winter night. Your furnace needs proper care and attention to keep it running smoothly, so you don't end up paying too much for heating during the cold winter months, or worse yet, with deadly carbon monoxide poisoning. We recommend an annual inspection to ensure safe operation. Confident Air, your trusted home comfort professionals since 1992.
The Drendel and Jansen's Law Group has practiced law in Aurora since 1961 and in Batavia since 1994.
We focus our energy on representing people and businesses and families in the local community.
We represent clients in Kane and surrounding counties in matters ranging from divorce to wills, business law to zoning.
We focus our efforts on planning and working towards positive resolutions for businesses and families.
When clients need someone to fight for their interests, we're ready, willing, and able to act as aggressive advocates to protect their interests.
Drendel and Jansen's Law Group with offices in Batavia and Aurora and located on the web at batavialaw.com.
The Kane County Chronicle is your best source for news and information in print and online in the Tri-Cities and Caneland.
This is Chronicle Country. This is Chronicle Country. This is Chronicle Country.
This is Chronicle Country.
This is Chronicle Country.
Are you looking for quality, integrity, and value in a remodeler? Then look no further than Batavia's own Green Star Remodeling. Green Star Remodeling is Batavia's hometown remodeler. We're a full-service exterior remodeling company that does everything from roofing and siding to windows, doors, and more. Green Star Remodeling delivers quality and value at an affordable price. Our customers are #1 and every customer is satisfied. If it's your dream, we'll make it happen. Visit greenstarremodeling.com or call 630-406-8826.
Welcome back to Viewpoint. Next, we have a question for Todd, one of the members of the Community Advisory Panel. Todd, can you talk a little bit about why you decided to become a member of that panel, and also a little bit about what interests you about Fermilab?
Sure. The big reason I wanted to get involved with Fermilab is because I was very interested in science. Not as a scientist, but something I've always been interested in, its role in society and how it impacts people, and understand what's being done, even if I don't know all the little ins and outs. So I answered, there was an ad in the paper, and answered, submitted my resume, and it's been a really exciting experience because I knew Fermilab was here primarily because of its importance as a cycling thoroughfare. It's a very important road for cyclists to get across the Fox Valley area. So I wanted to learn more about it, and the thing that fascinated me when I came on the board was that these scientists who have all these big ideas can make them so accessible to everyone. So one of the things that's been really exciting for me is to introduce new people to it. I've brought my parents and other friends and people who've lived in the Fox Valley area for years, decades even, and they didn't know this was here. I mean, they knew it was here, but all the stuff that goes on this O'Hare-sized plot, they didn't realize what happened. You know, it was a stereotypical guys in lab coats playing with radioactive materials.
That's Eric all the way. Yeah.
So, and so many people who beforehand had no interest in science ended up bringing their kids here and riding their bikes over here. And so it's not only been a personal journey, learning more about this and going down in the neutrino beam tunnel and everything else that goes on here, but also introducing other people. And then the other thing that I really enjoy about it is from its role as a natural space, not only from cycling, but the bison and the woods and the hiking trails. I go hiking on the trails with the little bit of snow we've had lately. I've been snowshoeing out there, and
cross country.
Cross country. I know I often run through here, and my wife runs through here with the trail that goes through. So all those things, it's just a way to get connected to the entire area. And I don't think most people see that aspect of it. They're just not aware of it.
How easy is it to learn a little bit more about Fermilab, would you say?
I think it's very easy, and Marge has mentioned a lot of the ways that myself and some of my friends and my family have taken advantage of learning more about it. But just coming into Wilson Hall and their wonderful displays and taking the tours of Ask a Scientist and various other things, it's very easy to learn more about it. And the website is beautiful too, and they keep improving that, and it's very easy to learn what's going on.
I do think it might be worth mentioning when you do come onto the Fermilab campus, you usually do have to go through a little bit of a process. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, they have security checkpoints at both ends, and you have to stop and say hi to the very nice security person there and show your ID, and then often they'll ask, you know, what are you here for, and then they'll let you through.
Yeah.
It's very accessible.
Yeah, I thought when I came through last summer to look at the bison and the bison calf or calves, I can't remember how many there were, and the security guard was seemed like he was having a really good day, so he let me in anyway. So, and of course, Fermilab does offer so many more things than just basic science. And Todd, you touched on a lot of them, but would everybody care to share something that they didn't know Fermilab offered, or something they don't think the general public knows? Why don't we start with you, Eric?
Yeah, I'll just, besides the natural history aspects of the lab, One thing that the lab has done in past years has been involved in cancer research, and I bet most people don't know that. We in fact have had for some time a cancer treatment area on site. It's closed at the moment, but it has treated many hundreds of patients over the years with neutron beams, and it's one of the very few facilities that has a neutron beam treatment center.
I never knew that myself, yeah. And how about you, Todd?
One thing that surprises people is the architecture. It's unique when you come in here and see the color schemes and the architecture, the sculptures. All a big favorite of mine, and my mother likes to come up here. She lives in Indiana, and we go on photography expeditions.
Sure.
And one of the places we frequently go is at Fermilab.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And Andre, how about you?
Well, Todd mentioned one thing, which is that the site is open and accessible, and it's open every day to the public, which is something a lot of people don't realize. And the process to get in is pretty simple. But for me, I'm a music junkie, and we have an art series that brings in great musicians at least once a month to our Ramsey Auditorium. We just had the Dirty Dozen Brass Band here, for example. And a concert series at Fermilab, I think, is something a lot of people don't realize happens there. So.
Yeah, that would be something I think, I know we promote a lot of those events in the paper, so we're usually on top of them. How about you, Marge?
Well, to follow up with the art series, we also have a chamber music series, which is on in a Sunday afternoon. And then we have a lecture series where we bring in top-notch scientists to talk about other sciences, not just particle physics. So those are two activities that people may not know about.
Yeah. And Brennan, how about you?
Yeah, one of the things that I was really excited to see when I got to the lab just a year and a half ago was that there are actual art galleries that go up on display, and sometimes they'll have a very close to home theme. They'll have art that's produced by lab members or family members of the lab, and it's really just a wonderful event, and it's accessible. You can see it when you visit the lab, but the diverse talents from sculptures to drawings and paintings to things that people have created is really, really diverse and inspiring.
Yeah. So many things. Andre, how do you go about making sure the community is aware of all these different offerings, and are there any challenges in that with so much going on?
Well, certainly. I think Fermilab has very strong community support, and we're really grateful for that. And part of that is because we're so open and accessible that people can come in. But I work pretty closely with all of the local media, which is including the Cron, which is great. You guys have always been really supportive of what we do and getting the word out there. When we have something particularly scientifically interesting, I mean, we send it worldwide, and we're picked up by media all over the world. So I mean, I think one of the main challenges that we've faced over the last couple of years is that we're in a transitional period right now, and Eric is certainly someone who can talk to you about the scientific program that we're developing. But there's been sort of an impression that because we ran this machine called the Tevatron for 25 years, and that shut down in 2011, and there's been sort of an impression that Fermilab had either closed or is closing because of that, and that nothing could be further from the truth. And so we've been working to develop new directions in our physics program since then, and part of the challenge is getting a lot of that out there to people. And one of the things that really helped fix that problem around here was the Mu on G-2 event, was thousands of people realizing that Fermilab still has an active program.
Sure, yeah. Eric, can you expand on that a little bit too, that mission?
Yeah, sure, I'd like to. In particle physics, we like to think of there being three main thrusts, and one of them, and they're called frontiers, and that's especially appropriate for Fermilab, which has a frontier feel to it. But the three frontiers are, first of all, the energy frontier, which we used to own. We used to be the highest energy beam in the world, and now that designation belongs to CERN, the laboratory, our sister laboratory in Geneva. And they're running the highest energy machine, LHC, but we participate quite a bit in that program. And so the recent discovery of the Higgs was a triumph for all of us, and Fermilab was very much involved in that. So that's one frontier. The second frontier is called the intensity frontier, and it's related to what Brendan is working on, which is high intensity beams, not necessarily high energy beams, but high intensity beams to look for very, very rare processes. And that involves the muon. It can also involve the neutrino, which is a very ghostly particle I could talk about for hours. It goes right through the Earth. And it also involves particles called the kaon and perhaps the pion. And so we're looking for very rare and forbidden processes, and if we find them, that's pure gold. So the third frontier is one of my favorites, the cosmic frontier. And only in the last, let's say, 15 to 20 years has it been discovered that the universe is mostly composed of things we can't see, and we had no idea about up until about, like I say, 15, 20 years ago. And these components are called dark energy and dark matter, and they make up the vast majority of our universe, and we don't know what they are. And so the weird thing is that studying subatomic particles can actually give you clues as to what dark matter and dark energy are. And I'm on a dark matter search experiment that is going on in a mine in Canada.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's an active nickel mine, actually. So, but we have to get way underground to get away from the cosmic rays. Yeah. And so, so we're searching for something called dark matter.
Going back for a second, both you and Todd now have mentioned the neutrino experiments that are going on, and you had talked about going down the neutrino tunnel. Can you guys talk a little bit more about that? I know it's real deep, and there was just recently a media day surrounding some of that experiment going on.
Go ahead, Todd.
From my aspect of that, I'm not even going to touch the science on it. I'm not
Yeah.
going there. But I want to bring that out because what you mentioned, they built a side tunnel off the existing one. And that was actually kind of an interesting way that the Community Advisory Board was able to provide some feedback, because I actually live just on the other side of Kirk Road from Fermilab, and someone, not me, had noticed that someone else who lived close to that area had heard a new sound at night. It was a high keening sound.
Okay.
And so they brought that up with the board. And so I went back, and one night I woke up, and in the middle of the night, I'm laying there, and I'm thinking, there's a new noise.
Yeah.
What is that? Oh, I know what that is. So that was something where, on the board, I could bring back, and I asked a few other people, bring back the feedback and say, yeah, you know, we do hear that. And it turned out to be involved coming from the ventilation system they used to extract the air and whatever it was doing. But it was, it was whistling.
Yeah.
And so they were very responsive to the community concerns, and just made to me, rather simple move that eliminated the noise completely. And so that was what I took away partially from that, you know, they're very open to the community and addressing concerns.
And so you visited the underground site?
Yeah.
On site, yeah. It's a tunnel. It's about 270 feet underground, and it's where we point a neutrino beam. We first measure the properties of the neutrino beam on site, and then it's pointed to a mine in Minnesota.
Right.
And so this mine is called Sudan mine, and an old iron mine up in the Iron Range. And so we look at the properties of the neutrinos when they hit that detector as compared to the detector here on site. And so from that difference, we can tell how the neutrinos have changed their character, changed their nature, going from one place to the other. And like I said, it's a very ghostly particle. It goes right through the Earth. We make a beam of neutrinos here, point it to Minnesota, and then it just goes right through the Earth in a millisecond.
Yeah.
And so it is detected at this underground laboratory in Minnesota. And our next stage of Fermilab's plan for the future involves an even much, much larger 35,000-ton detector in the gold mine in South Dakota. And so we're going to point another neutrino beam to there and see what happens.
Any danger in that work?
No, it's first of all, the beam of neutrinos is completely. It'll just go like a ghost. Just goes through regular matter. People, you can stand in the middle of the neutrino beam.
Yeah.
I've done that.
Yeah.
Some people were freaked out, but it's
yeah.
there's also a natural neutrino beam coming out all the time from the cosmics and also from the sun.
Yeah.
And,
Hold out your hand.
Yep. Neutrinos going through it right now.
All day and all night, right? In the nighttime, you have the beam coming through the Earth from the sun and right through your body that way, and so you don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there's neutrinos everywhere around us, and we think that they may have played the most significant role in the creation of the universe. Namely, why is there more matter, us, than there is antimatter back then? And nobody really knows the exact answer to that, but it very may well be due to the neutrino.
Yeah. You know, I'd be interested to know, either Eric or Brendan, going through and doing these experiments, and I would imagine that you guys have been interested in science for years, and in some cases may have been participating in different experiments for years. Is it something where you feel rewarded every day, just being part of that journey to get an answer? Do you get frustrated at times when it takes so long to try to figure something out, Brendan?
Well, I think that would be like any job. There are days where you've got your nose to the grindstone and you're working on things, but the ultimate reward when you see these big results, or when you see a sister collaboration come up with a big result like the Higgs boson, which I wasn't involved in at all, is just tremendously rewarding to know that we're making progress along the way. But on a daily level, it is extremely rewarding because we get to do a variety of tasks and solve mini puzzles and put those mini puzzles together to solve a much grander puzzle. And sometimes it might feel strange to wait 5 years or 10 years or 30 years for a result, right? But you're doing many things at the same time and interacting and getting ready to do the next thing, and all while taking care of your daily responsibilities. So.
But I think it's interesting that you use the word journey, because discovery science is a journey. But to most people, it looks like an event because it's a headline in a newspaper, or maybe it's even this program where people are hearing a little bit about science at Fermilab, but they don't realize all the work that's gone in to make that journey take place. And I think that's an important message that we at Fermilab ought to be sharing with everybody and helping people understand that, in fact, there's a lot of work. Sometimes it's not as exciting as others, and there are a lot of people involved in doing these experiments. And yet, when you see that headline, you should remember everything that went back into making that headline reality.
Just didn't happen overnight.
Right.
And it certainly helps that we're working on at a beautiful site like Fermilab. I mean, coming in every day is not a chore at all. It may develop into a chore that particular day, but every day I come in through the forests and see the beautiful high-rise and the geese or whatnot. It's a joy.
Yeah.
So.
Andre said it was the best job he ever had.
Absolutely.
It's the best job I've ever had,
Me
and
too.
I bet it's the best job they've ever had, too.
I see smiles, so it seems good.
You haven't been there that long.
Yeah, I've been here a year and a half.
Hopefully you say that.
But I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the puzzles, and I think that's the best part of the job is the variety of work, and so it's easy to say yes to that.
The Higgs has been mentioned a couple times now. It also goes by the name God particle. What, is that an appropriate way to describe it? Do you guys kind of hate that phrasing?
So Leon Letterman, our previous director, invented that.
His publisher did.
Okay, his publisher did, really?
His publisher.
Yes. Okay.
They gave him the title of the book. Yep.
Anyway, he sometimes calls it the God darn particle.
Yeah.
or worse. But no, It deserves an incredible amount of respect, the discovery of that particle at CERN. It is something that has bothered particle physicists for quite some time, decades, is to try and understand kind of one keystone for what we call the standard model of particles. And that keystone could have been there or it might not have been there. We weren't for sure until you actually go out there and look at it. And it turns out it takes the most sophisticated machine that mankind has ever invented to find that particle. Now, what does it tell us? Well, that's a weird, there's a strange answer to that, and it's not as much as you'd like, in the sense that the Higgs boson, this God particle, if you will, seems to cause particles to have their mass, okay, which is, a very powerful concept. But it doesn't explain why they have the particular mass that they have. In other words, it explains that they can have mass, but not the value of mass that each particle has. So we're in some sense, we're stuck at another fundamental question. And that's the way science, and particularly particle physics, is. It hits something that you think of as a roadblock until that opens up with new technology. And then there's just another puzzle waiting for you on the other side. So, yeah.
You talked about how sophisticated that piece of equipment had to be, and I'm guessing it probably did cost quite a bit of money to put it together. Funding and science and Fermilab, how important is that? You want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. So we rely on the Department of Energy for our funding, and so we're happy, getting what's, been freely given to us. And it's up to the public. The thing I want to emphasize about the funding aspect is that it is up to the public to decide these things. Believe me, votes count, okay? And in this democracy of ours, sometimes we don't think so, but votes do count. And if there are complaints made that, let's say, Fermilab is, not doing something that's important for society, that gets translated into votes. And so, at all levels of government. So I think it's very important that one way or the other, whatever you feel about what we do, that should be made known to the people who fund us.
Right.
But I think it's important, too, to look at the value of particle physics to society. And Andre, you may be able to comment on some of the aspects of like security and computing.
Certainly. I mean, one thing that's very difficult for me to answer for people is what people get out of what we do there. And Fermilab is based on very fundamental physics, where we're looking for the answers to these very fundamental questions about the universe. And that's just essentially to improve the knowledge base of the human race. We don't go into this with any sort of practical application in mind. And so that's sometimes a stumbling block for people to ask why this is important and relevant.
Sure.
But what happens when we do that, when we go after those questions, is that we have to develop the best computers in order to take that. We have to develop the best magnets in order to make the high-powered accelerators that we do. We have to develop the best technology in order to answer these questions. And those are the things that end up improving the world, that end up going out and going into becoming products for people, becoming technological innovations that people can use. And so that's one of the main reasons to fund basic research, is that we don't know what we're going to invent as we go for these questions.
Sure. How has funding changed over the past few years, past decades?
Well, we definitely saw a little bit of a hit with sequestration and things like that have happened. But the current omnibus budget bill that was just passed gets us back up to a level that we can offer. All of our projects are funded for the coming year. So we're grateful for what we get.
Would any of you care to mention any elected officials who you feel like really champion learning more about science and/or Fermilab, or?
Certainly, actually, Denny Hastert was a very good supporter of ours, and he was Speaker of the House, was it 10 years ago or something of that nature? But the one character I like to think about is Bill Foster, who is in the 15th district? 11th district. It changed. And so he used to be a scientist at Fermilab, and so he's, of course, has to be one of our big champions. And so, no, but we've gotten great support from Congress. I don't think it has been a volleyball, that gets batted around all the time. I think it's been a reasonably steady kind of funding.
I think we have to mention Representative Holcren as well.
Of course, I'm sorry.
Because he actually is this town's.
He's our.
Right. And I live in Warrenville. He's my congressman too, and he certainly has been a champion for Fermilab and for science education too. I would say he shows up at our family open houses, and his kids have been involved in some programs. So we like him too.
That's encouraging to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a chance to speak with Representative Holcren about that, and and going back to Foster and Hastert, I may not agree with all their politics, but they do understand what an economic driver and a technological driver Fermilab is. And because, when people think of Fermilab, it's just the scientists, but all the infrastructure, your HVAC people, electricians, engineers, this whole cast behind the scenes that have to make these big machines work and work to such small tolerances.
Right.
That's just as fascinating as the science itself.
Yeah. Eric, I asked you earlier how many people work at Fermilab. Can you repeat that number?
Yeah, I think it's about 1,700 at the moment.
Yeah.
So.
Not just a drop in the hat.
No,
That's
no,
a lot
yeah.
of
And a
lot
lot
of
of
jobs.
them live in Batavia, so it's a very, very tight-knit group.
So what is the future of Fermilab? Brendan, how about we start with you? What do you see happening at Fermilab over the next year, 10, 20, 30, 100 years from now?
Well, so definitely from my perspective, the Intensity Frontier is my personal future and something I'm really excited in. We hope to build, the most intense source to shoot this beam to South Dakota, and we have our eyes on many different possibilities, and we're hoping to find the next new evidence of a new particle out there at the laboratory. So that's my main scientific interest for what's next.
Sure. Marge?
Well, why don't you let Eric say what his scientific interest is, and then I'll say what's really important.
No, sounds good. Sounds good. Best for last scenario over there.
Okay,
Eric,
great.
go ahead.
I agree with that. So we will definitely be involved in the 3 frontiers I outlined and Brendan talked about. One of the big things going on is the upgrade to the LHC machine in Geneva to twice as much energy, and then eventually something like on the order of 10 times as much intensity. And so we are a big part of that upgrade program. I want to emphasize again that just because the accelerator is located in Geneva doesn't mean that we're not a big part of it. We're a hub of activity, in fact, for that experiment and that accelerator. And so there's going to be a big search for new particles at the LHC. And it's an extraordinarily exciting time for particle physics because we do not know, we just have no idea what is going to happen in this next run at the LHC. So that's one of my favorites. But the turning on of the various neutrino beams is also pretty darn exciting because, as I said, the physics is very fundamental. So I'm looking forward to both those. And of course, I'm on a dark matter experiment. I'm always, if we discover dark matter, all bets are off.
Yeah,
So, that would be something.
So I would like to see down the road that some of the particle physicists who are hired at Fermilab say, when I was 6, when I was in high school, I came to Fermilab and I met Eric and Brandon, and they really turned me on and showed me how neat it would be to do science. Yeah. So we would like to think that the programs that we use for families, the work that we do with teachers, we can help them with the next generation science standards which are coming out. We can help them see how to engage their own students the way these guys are engaged in doing science. That in fact really comes back to benefit the community and to benefit Fermilab. Yeah. So they're all going to be there in 10, 15, 20 years. I won't be there, but they will.
Todd, how about you?
Well, since I don't work for the lab, I don't have that insight, but I would say continue raising the community knowledge of it. I mean, I still get so many people say, wow, I didn't know that was in there.
Right.
So I would like to see that and understand and see the people understand more about it and understand why it's important to science in general, but especially to the United States in keeping Fermilab doing what it's doing and keeping it active on the science front, even though they're not in the business of making the next iPhone. They're looking at gains 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years out. And I know that's harder, especially when it's a high-cost facility, but I think it's very important to make it people aware of that.
Yeah. And Andre?
So one of the ways that we've come up with to raise community awareness, just to build on Todd's point a little bit, is a community newsletter that we've just put together, which you can sign up for on our website, which is fnal.gov.
All right.
But as for the future, I think we're going to be the neutrino capital of the world. I think we're going to be, one of the experiments that Eric mentioned is the long baseline neutrino experiment, which is going to be one of the most sophisticated in the world. And I think that's where people are going to come from all over the world to use our accelerators and our detectors to do neutrino experiments. I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah. It's really cool to hear about all that stuff, I gotta say. And just any final thoughts about Fermilab, or any words to potential watchers out there about why they should check it out if they haven't before? Brendan, we'll start with you again.
Yeah, it's a really interesting place, and it's really open. People can come to the laboratory as people have described, and we're really excited when they do to share what we're working on and to inspire people like Marge said, because really. Actually, the real reason to have people come out is to inspire us and remind us why we're doing this as scientists.
Yeah, thank you. Marge?
Well, I think you see the smiles and the enthusiasm of all of us around the table, and I think you have an opportunity as a member of the community to come and catch some of that passion. So we want to see you come and get as enthusiastic as Todd is from his experience.
Right. Thank you. Andre?
Yeah, we want to see people come and get excited about science and think of it not as something that really smart people do in an ivory tower somewhere, but think of it as something that they can do themselves and get interested in it, particularly at a young age, as something that they could do as a career and something that's just a very exciting thing to do. So.
Yeah, thank you. And Todd?
I guess I'll just build on all of that. Definitely come out to Fermilab and see how active and vital it is, and that a lot of things are going on, and there's something for just about everybody.
Thank you. Eric?
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize how wonderful all of us have this great job at Fermilab, great jobs at Fermilab, and or connections with the laboratory, and how privileged we are to have that. And I want to urge everybody who watches this show to to at least contemplate whether, how to support this laboratory in the future, and what they would like to see us do more of, to help the community. And we have many programs that we've outlined that do that. And we want to see those continue and blossom even further. So.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our guests on this episode of Viewpoint. We hope that we have answered viewer questions about Fermilab. For more information on Fermilab, visit the website www.fnal.gov. To watch previous episodes of Viewpoint, or if you have a topic you would like to see discussed on a future episode of the show, please submit a request through the BATV website at www.mybatv.com. I'm Kathy Gressy. See you next time on Viewpoint.